again, you had to go to the theater several times. And it kind of became a thing in my day to how many times did you go see the movie. So Star Wars, I saw 8 times in the theater. And 8 is not a lot. Not a lot at all. Okay, so let's come on over here. Now, as you see, I have some more movies, posters down there that we have yet to put up. The Bourne Identity, the whole Bourne series is massive for me. I adore the Bourne series. So we're going to put that up. We have Nightmare Before Christmas and, you know, a whole bunch of others. But let's take a look at the ones that we have up. Okay, Alien. Oh, yeah, Alien. Like the best horror sci-fi ever, right? So then we have, okay, we have a Star Trek series here. Now, the first one is the new Star Trek, the Star Trek reboot. Then we have Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan, with Ricardo Montalban. That one's fantastic. And then we have Galaxy Quest. Now, you might say Galaxy Quest is not a Star Wars movie, but J.J. Abrams would disagree with you. J.J. Abrams calls Galaxy Quest the best Star Trek movie ever. Then we have some art. Okay, art, got to have some art. Movie-focused art, got to have that up. Okay, let's come on over here. So, Fiddler on the Roof. This movie is fantastic. And actually, it's a movie that my wife and I watched dozens and dozens of times, especially early in our marriage when we were not financially stable and we're still trying to, you know, come to grips with growing up and so forth. And so the story of a poor man trying to make it through life was just really strong for us. Godzilla, the original Godzilla, Gojira. I'm a massive Godzilla fan, especially as a kid. I don't know that I watch, well, no, I know I don't watch it nearly as much as I used to as a kid, but when I was growing up, Godzilla was everything. Blade Runner, yes. Blade Runner is a classic. Great example of a movie that was not appreciated in its time. It did not do well in the movie theaters. But now, today, we really understand what an incredible, you know, classic film that is. All right, then we come on over here. All right, so what do we have? The Great Escape, fantastic movie. I'm realizing now that all the text is backwards. Maybe I'll be able to fix that by the time you guys are watching this, you know, because it's mirror view. I absolutely adore The Great Escape, fantastic movie. Blues Brothers, we're on a mission from God. Yeah, Blues Brothers, great. Over here, let's come on over here. I have, oh, where is it? There we go. Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. This is a Wes Anderson film. I love everything Wes Anderson. You either love Wes Anderson or you don't. And I'm one of those who love Wes Anderson. That said, I would not say that Life Aquatic was his best movie. I personally feel his best movie was The Royal Tenenbaums. He won an Oscar, actually, for the Grand Budapest Hotel. So the guy has been recognized by mainstream Hollywood since. But Life Aquatic has a special place in my heart because when I was a kid, and I mean this big, my life ambition was to become an oceanographer and to study with Jacques Cousteau. That's right. And I kid you not, I moved to France and learned French with the express purpose of one day I'm going to study with Jacques Cousteau, and if I'm going to study with him, I need to learn French. I mean, that's how serious I was about it. Well, obviously, it didn't pan out the way I had envisioned as a kid, but Life Aquatic really plays off of the whole Jacques Cousteau phenomenon that was back in the 60s and 70s. So that's a special film for me. We have Thoroughly Modern Millie. This is a choice of my wife. She loves that film. And to be truthful, it's actually kind of a fun movie. And then finally, this is a piece of art that we got off of Etsy, right? With Fry and Leela from Back to the Future. No, Futurama. From Futurama, the cartoon series Futurama that was canceled like 3 or 4 times and moved to different networks and so on and so forth. Futurama really struggled to find its audience or to get the executives to understand what it was and how it worked. But it has a massively loyal fan base, myself and my family included. And this is Fry and Leela, of course, are the main protagonist, love interest, and it says here at the bottom, what do you say? You want to go around again? And if you know the series and if you know the last episode, you know what that means. And my wife and I love that because my wife and I are hopeless romantics. And Futurama was really a touching romantic tale of these two people. I know, right? Futurama, touching romantic tale. But it really was. So there you go. My family room, my movie wall, and all that sort of stuff. Fun for me, right? And that's all this is, fun for me. You guys just have to kind of sit there and wait for the class to begin. So, well, with that, let's begin. Okay, and so, yeah, let's do it. Go ahead and close that out. Welcome, everyone. Fantastic to have you aboard. It looks like we have folks joining in, so that is phenomenal. Yeah, so we got a lot of chat going on here about Godzilla and so forth. Yeah, I'm a big Godzilla fan and loved it as a kid, and the campiness of it all, but then the poignant aspects of it as well. And so, yeah, I've been watching the Monarch series, right? Godzilla and King Kong is coming up. So, yeah, we'll just have to see how that goes. Great to have you aboard. Let's go ahead and kind of talk about what we're going to do today. And incidentally, since we've had so many people come in and talk and so forth, we'll go ahead and give us a couple of points there, because anytime you bring up movies, I'm in a good mood. Okay. Hey, so let's talk about where we are. Remember, I said that over the next few lectures and going in the past as well, we were going to start discovering the ingredients of capitalism. Capitalism, of course, capitalism is one of those things that you all know the word, but what is it, right? Well, capitalism is really made up of 5 main elements. We have private capital, we have profit motive, laissez-faire, we have free markets, and then we have invisible hand. Well, we've talked about private capital. Remember, this is where the Protestant work ethic came into play and said that you have a moral obligation to invest your money. Wow. Not only is it, okay, good idea and so forth, moral, theologically grounded obligation to invest private capital. That was massive, especially since in the past, finance was viewed with such contempt by religion. So we already talked about that. And then on Monday in our lecture there, our previous lecture, for those of you following this after the fact, we talked about profit motive. And profit motive basically said, listen, everybody wants to better their material circumstance. Everybody wants to better their circumstance. And furthermore, it's never enough. It's never enough. So, okay, I can put a roof over my head now and so on and so forth, but I want more job security. I want more benefits. I want more flexibility. I want more autonomy in my career. I want more money, right? And the profit motive says, go for it. Do it. Let's do it. But it's always out there in the future. So you're always pushing forward. But as we know, because the profit motive, according to the theory of capitalism, is so ingrained in us that we're willing to do a lot of crappy work to move forward, right? So we're willing to do the crap jobs if you pay me enough. And we're willing to go to school if I have this sense of future payoff for it. Okay, so those are the two ingredients we've talked about thus far. But what we're going to talk about today is a laissez-faire, all right? We're going to talk about how it sort of developed, the rationale behind it, and how it really plays out. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'm in the wrong thing. Let's go ahead and get my highlighter, the ubiquitous highlighter. Okay, so remember, we talked about this in our last lecture. I'm actually going to be referencing a lot of our readings in this lecture. We're going to be referencing readings from Woods, Watt, and Anderson, as well as Edward Cheney and Hellbrenner, right? Robert Hellbrenner, as well as a little bit from Ed Ing, who we read about at the beginning. So just so you know, we're kind of all over the place, but if you're one of those who are doing the assignments, don't worry, I take care of you. And everything that I just pointed out, you couldn't see because I was in the way. Anyway, these are the 4 readings that we'll be referencing. You'll be all right. Okay, so let's define laissez-faire. Laissez-faire is actually a French term that means leave it alone. Leave alone. Hey, Jack, just hands off. Leave it alone. Okay? So let's read this. According to this theory, economic adjustments follow certain natural laws which can be depended upon to work for the ultimate advantage of humanity. And these laws should be allowed to function without interference. And this was according to Wood, Watts, and Anderson. Okay. I want to break this down. Okay. I want to break this down and kind of point some things out. All right. Certain natural laws. Natural laws. Well, what do they mean by natural laws? Meaning it's natural. And like yogurt, if it's natural, it's good, right? I want you to think about, as I go through this, the ideas of axiom and dogma that we discussed at the very beginning of this lecture series. Dogma meaning that something is incontrovertibly true. You can't even question it. It is prima facie, clearly, without controversy, true. Okay? And an axiom is kind of a saying or a pithy, witty thing that expresses a dogma, right? So when somebody is saying that there are natural laws out there, that's kind of saying that's a dogma. It's natural, it's out there, and like all things natural, you should leave them alone, right? I always like the kind of observation that if you got these Paleolithic diets and so forth, and by the way, I'm gluten-free, so I'm not dissing the Paleolithic diet, whatever that's called, okay? But I like the observation that says, you know what? Back when the cavemen were around, there was no air pollution. They ate all organic food. They exercised daily, and they all died by the age of 35, right? So natural isn't all it's cracked up to be. But here they're saying it's a natural law, which can be depended upon. Ooh, that's making a dogmatic assertion to work to the ultimate advantage. Oh my gosh, this is getting really over the top, right? The ultimate advantage of humanity. And these laws should be allowed to function without interference. Okay, really embrace what this just said. This lined up a whole bunch of dogmatic statements saying this is, incontrovertibly true. It's natural. We can depend upon it. It's good for all of humanity. And therefore, they should be allowed to work without interference. That is laissez-faire. That is laissez-faire. Just let the system run as it will. Okay? So if we look at this continuum down here, we have authoritarian, democratic. Laissez-faire says just no regulation, none at all. Just let the natural world do what it does. Okay, let's continue on then. Now, for a moment, I'm going to actually speak in favor of laissez-faire in the natural world. All right? Now, I'm not going to play this video, but you can Google this later on, how wolves changed rivers. Okay? But I will give you, where's the button I'm looking for? There's the button I'm looking for. I'm going to give you an overview of this video. So, out in Yellowstone Park, decades and decades ago, the wolves roamed free, buffalo roamed free, everything roamed free, Yellowstone Park. And the ranchers, though, did not like the wolves because wolves would come in and eat their cattle, right? These ranchers are out there trying to earn a living, and wolves are coming in and decimating their cattle. So the ranchers pushed to have wolves removed from the region. And so that's what the government did. They went out there and basically just killed off all the wolves in the region, so the ranchers were happy. And for decades and decades, that was the case at Yellowstone. Until a couple decades back, or whatever, a few years back, they decide to reintroduce the wolf. All right? They want to restore Yellowstone to its natural state. And so they do, and they reintroduce the wolf. And they find some incredible things happen. It just completely changes the ecosystem. Some of the things that the video points out is that the herds of buffalo and deer and elk and so forth became more healthy because the wolves were culling out the sick and the elderly. They mentioned that because the herds were kept in check, the grass grew taller and trees grew differently and so forth. I mean, all kinds of really fascinating things, really fascinating. But then the ultimate assertion they make is that because the land changed, the rivers and the trees and how water was absorbed and how water ran through the parks, that the rivers actually changed. The nature of the very rivers changed, all as a result of the reintroduction of the wolf. And so this video makes the assertion that nature knows best. Don't try to mess with nature. And so when you removed the wolf from its natural environment in Yellowstone, without realizing it, you screwed up the whole ecosystem in Yellowstone. And by reintroducing the wolf to get things back to the way they should have been, the whole region was much healthier. Okay? So this is an example of natural laws. Just leave them alone. They know how to work. They don't need human beings to come in and micromanage. Okay? So that's the thinking behind laissez-faire. Now, I want to give Edward Ng a moment to chime in, though. Okay? Ed Ng, he's actually a professor here at Salt Lake Community College, and he wrote The Physics of Business there at the beginning of the semester that we discussed. But let's review something that he said. Physics and math are sciences, but business and engineering are applications of science. They use the laws discovered elsewhere for their own reasons. So business is not a science, but we use science, we use things discovered through science to further business. Now, here's the kicker though. Sometimes there is a danger in using an application without remembering the source. Without keeping the source of an idea in one's mind, it is easy to make false associations. What we are going to see here is that during this time, people are discovering natural selection, survival of the fittest. They're discovering these natural laws applied to the environment and to biology. And we're taking these natural laws and applying them to economics. If natural selection and survival of the fittest work so well in the natural world, surely it is equally as applicable in the economic world. Maybe, maybe not, right? So we're going to kind of see that today. Now, here's the thing. One thing to bear in mind is the natural world actually works really, really well. I happen to agree that humans meddling in the natural world isn't really such an awesome thing. Leave it alone. Natural selection, survival of the fittest, evolution, just leave it alone, it'll work great. But here's the thing. Nature is a son of a bitch. Nature is mean and cruel and nasty. I mean, it is awful. I love this picture here. Cruelty, when I knew I wasn't the favorite one. So feeding the big fat bird to, standing on the little bird to feed the big fat bird, right? Or all these wolves surrounding this buffalo about to take it down. So here's the thing is, when I was a kid watching documentaries, and I love documentaries, obviously if I was into Jacques Cousteau and so forth, I would always identify with the prey. I would always identify with the little lamb that was being chased by the lion and so forth. And I'd say, oh, run away, run away. And then the lion would catch this thing and eviscerate it and eat it. And it's like, life is cruel. As an adult, I identify with the lion, not because I'm cruel or anything, but because that lion needs to feed cubs. That lion needs to go off and feed her cubs and take care of them. And if she doesn't hunt, her pride dies. And as an adult and as a father, I am living my life trying to feed my cubs, right? And so I'd identify with that. But nature can be really, really, really cruel. And are we saying that we can justifiably be cruel to our fellow man because laissez-faire is a natural system that will work to the ultimate advantage of all of humanity? That's the thing. Morals and ethics don't apply to the animal kingdom. They do to us. But we're going, and during this time that we're exploring today, folks are really trying to struggle with this. By the way, Brooke comes in and says, my boyfriend has chickens, pigs, etc. And those suckers will try to eat each other and their babies. A side of nature that they don't show in the movies. So yeah, contributor, awesome comment, real world example. Yeah, those things are freaking mean. Animals are mean, cruel little things. But they're mean and cruel because we are anthropomorphizing. Anthropomorphize means that we take human attributes and, infuse animals with these human attributes. And so when we look at animals eating each other and eating their chicks, we think, oh, you're cruel and immoral and awful and you're going to die and go to hell, you nasty little chicken. And the chicken's like, dude, I'm just being a chicken. Don't anthropomorphize me. Well, this affects how we view laissez-faire. Okay, that's a great example, Brooke. Okay, So, and this bad boy's in the way, so I'm going to move it. Give me a moment here. Discard. You're going to be like, hey, what happened? Well, it's because I had this thing in the way, and I don't want it in the way. Okay, so let's read this from Woods, Watts, and Anderson. The theory of evolution claimed for man no such central position in the plan of creation. By slow growth and through a process of long development, he ascended from earlier and lower life forms. So this is what is going through in the minds of people at this time. The theory of evolution comes along and says, you're not so hot. Okay? Before, the earth was the center of the universe and mankind was like the peak of all things universally. And theory of evolution says, you're not the center of the universe. The sun is not rotating around you. And you were monkeys once, right? And so this kind of changed the mindset of people in business that, well, gosh, if evolution and theory of survival of the fittest and so on and so forth can create what has come about, then clearly it's the right attitude for us to have in business. Okay? So let's continue on with this reading. By removing man from his smug post at the center of the universe, it gave him a sounder view of the physical universe and a better sense of proportion. You actually matter, but in a different way. And the method of scientific investigation stiffened his system of thought skepticism, as Huxley pointed out, and was no longer a sin, but a virtue. Okay, let's pause here for a moment. In the past, it would be just believe what you've been told. Dogma says this, axioms say this, they're incontrovertibly true. Do not question them. But now science is starting to come into play, and this kind of, understanding that we can actually affect our destiny. We are not just, trying to figure out what destiny God imposed upon us. We can actually affect our own fate. And we can do this through scientific method, through skepticism, and through exploration. This never really came about before. And the knowledge based on human authority was replaced by one rooted strongly in careful investigation, observation, and logical induction. Okay, so we're starting to bring the scientific method into business practices. Now, this is going to really matter in about 3 or 4 lectures, right? It's no longer just do what we've always done. It's now let's explore these things. Let's explore what we do through the scientific method. So by seeing the world and by taking thought about it, man increased his intellectual independence and his mental stature. Okay. All right. But that's all well and good, and that's awesome. But there are classes out there, right? Not our class. I mean social classes. And Laissez-Faire has an interesting view of social classes. So you remember in a previous lecture, remember how, the powers decided that they own land, and so they created enclosures. And so people could no longer farm the land and have free and open access to it. And so we talked about the movie Open Range. Check it out. Pretty good movie. Talks about enclosures specifically. And how it created, the agricultural proletariat. Basically, I forget the term that we discovered before, right? Tenement farmers and poverty and so forth. They could no longer farm what they had before. For generations and generations, they farmed this land, and gosh, the things are in the way of the pictures. I apologize. They always farmed this land, but now they can no longer farm it. So what do? Well, it creates a problem. It creates a big problem. What Woods, Watts, and Anderson calls the naughtiest and most vexing a problem. Not naughty as in this, but a knot like the, oh gosh, what's the knot that could not be untied and they had to cut it? Oh gosh, some ancient myth, the Goshen knot or something like that. If you can find it, go ahead and put it in the comments there. It created a problem that was difficult to resolve. So check this out. Since the erection and operation of the factories demanded two things. So remember, we allocated land, they enclosed it, they built factories and so forth. It required money for building and maintenance and mill hands to operate the power and the looms. All right, to operate the factories. So let's be clear. Let's kind of figure out where we are. So we have all this land. People have been farming it for generations and generations. Those in power decide all of a sudden that they can own land. And so they put up fences and they kick people off the land and say, we own this. If you want to farm it, you now work for us. Or they don't even do farms, they build factories. So now these people who have taken this land build the factories, and so they have money for building and maintaining the factories, but they need people to work the factories. Yeah, the very people that kicked off the land, they need to then have come back and work the factories, okay? So, as this reading is talking about England soon found herself with two new major classes of society, those representing capital and those representing labor. So the employer and the employee. Now, I know this sounds weird, but this is new. Remember, we talked about in the last lecture that there was no abstract understanding of labor. You worked for me because either your last name was Miller, so you milled, or Tanner, or Schiffbauer, or Smith, so you worked. You did that because that was your last name, or I enslaved you. I put you into a caste system, I enslaved you, I put you under the whip, I forced you to work for me. The idea now that I actually need to employ you, that was weird. That was really weird. The idea that I couldn't just force you to work for me, or it was natural tradition or custom for you to work for me. I have to now pay you. This was different. And it created the naughtiest and most vexing of problems. Okay? So, let's talk about how this Industrial Revolution going on, how this change affected our philosophy. All right? You know what? I'm not going to worry about this. I'm not going to worry about this. I want to go on to this. Okay. So here's the thing. We've now got employers and employees, right? Well, how should the two classes treat each other? Understand, these were new classes. There was no such thing as an employer. There was no such thing as an employee. So how do we treat each other? Now, on the surface, it's pretty darn obvious. Employers need employees and employees need employers. So we need to be, fair and equitable and so on and so forth. Not necessarily what was happening, okay? So, thus the structure of regulation of industry, which had been built up in the 16th and 17th centuries, or for which had survived from Middle Ages, was now torn down. Okay, the structure that was torn down was, it's your last name, you do it, or you're a slave and you do it. We've torn that down. We can no longer rely on tradition or slavery, force, command to get the work done. That's gone. So, the use of powers of government to make men carry on their economic life in a certain way, to buy and sell, labor and hire, manufacture and cultivate, export and import in such ways as were thought to be best for the entire nation, seemed to be utterly abandoned, entirely abandoned. Government can no longer force you to do what government thinks you ought to do. The laissez-faire of government was to all appearances becoming entirely dominant. In other words, it's every man out for themselves. Okay? Now, here's the thing. This really was difficult for everyone. All right? Even among those who were supposed to have reaped the advantages of the changes of the time, many unpleasant phenomena occurred. All right, let's take a look at that. I want you to think about this. Let's pause for a moment. I'm going to pause for a moment, and I'm going to actually ask you a question, and we're going to go to our little question thing here. Why do you want to own your own business? Now, maybe you don't want to. Okay, I understand. But imagine, if you will, put yourself in the mind of why would you want to own your own business? You could work for somebody else, or you can have your own business. Share with me in the comments section why you would want to own your own business, or imagine why that might be the case. And let's take a look at that. Okay, so I'm going to put this here. Why would you want to own your own business? I'm not a fast typer. Okay, let's explore that question and come back and see what you have. So we'll come here. Excellent. Very good. So first of all, we're going to go ahead and your awesome comments are maxed out. So absolutely. Very good. And they're still coming in. That is fantastic. So let's go ahead and do our timestamp. We are at 10:32. 10:32. So you know what that means. After the lecture, send me an email that says 10:32, and we'll take care of you like we always do. And then we also have a whole bunch of new contributors. So fantastic. That is great. Okay. So, and one more. Let's add that in. All right. Let's explore these real quick, right? I'm going to come over here and do this. this was good. So, Andrea said, passionate about something you want to do, get money and so forth, motivated. Scott said, so I can be my own boss, not have somebody telling me what to do all day long. And the work benefits me, not somebody else. Yes, that's very, very good. We're going to see that explored here in a moment. Okay. Jack, be my own boss. Brooke, be my own decision maker. Oh, yeah, we're going to see that explored here too. Adrian, first, freedom. Be allowed to make your own choices. Decision maker again, right? Not a slave to somebody else's dream. Oh my gosh, I love that. Time is money. You can make it work for you the best way. Izzy says, besides all the work it takes to get there, I think it'd be rewarding to have control over your own environment. Yes. Okay, you guys are getting this. We're going to see this. Adam, be able to work on something I really enjoy, have flexibility, right? Yeah. Kristen, make and keep your own profit, right, Kristen? Make and keep your profit. Mauricio, sounds nice from my experience. You work harder and longer. I agree. I really agree. Okay, so let's check this out. Let's see what happens over here. All right, so remember, the farmers were kicked off their land, right? Land they had been farming for generations. The farmers were not worse, perhaps were even better off on the average in the matter of wages than those of the previous generation. Okay, so farmers were probably actually making more money not being a farmer, but working in a factory. You're making more money in a factory, okay? So better off, right? No. But they were more completely separated from the land than they had ever been before, more completely deprived of those wholesome influences which came from the use of even a small portion of land and the incitement to thrift that comes from the possibility of rising. Okay, what did that just say? It said, okay, listen, you're better off financially. But you know what? You're separated from your labor. You're separated from what you're doing. You're not even motivated to try to be better at what you're doing when you're working in a factory. When I'm working in the farm or on my own business, I'm motivated to be thrifty, to find opportunities for innovation. I'm motivated to be efficient with my limited resources. But when I'm working for somebody else, I have none of that motivation. And furthermore, as a farmer, I really got to feel the joy of my success. Sure, I wasn't making a lot of money, but it was my money. It was my profits. Whereas, okay, with a factory, I might be making more money, but it's not my business. It's not my dream that I'm working toward. I'm working toward somebody else's. You guys get it, okay? Now, I know a few of you own your own businesses. I own a business, okay? I can tell you from my own personal experience, and I think some of you can back this up, you don't make a ton of money in your own business. You don't make a lot. I have always made more money working for the man than for myself. But the reward of working for yourself is just exquisite, right? So these are things that are happening to the psyche of the economy, to the people, okay? Adam says, yes, so true. So yeah, Adam's on board. He gets it. And since he's speaking from experience, I'm giving that real world experience, right? Same with Sean. It's very rewarding, right? Yes. Not Sean, Scott. I apologize. Okay. So how should the two classes treat each other? Well, here's the thing. In the world of laissez-faire, and let's go ahead and get our animation going because it's fun. In the world of laissez-faire at this time, they really kind of viewed it as like natural selection. It's dog eat dog. And it was every man out for himself, every man and woman, and especially women when it came to the factories. And laissez-faire said, don't regulate anybody. Do not impose any regulation on the factories. Do not impose any regulation on the factory owners. Let the market just kind of do what it will. Let laissez-faire run its course because it is a natural law and it will work to the ultimate advantage of humanity. Well, you guys know about the Industrial Revolution. And in fact, if you're in my class, you're going to watch a video this week about the Industrial Revolution. And you're going to see that people, the landowners, the factory owners, did not always treat their employees very well. And this is an issue that is going to be vexing us for the next few lectures. All right, for over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be really exploring this because it was a tough time to be a laborer because laissez-faire allowed employers to do anything they wanted. All right, and so we're going to be exploring that in detail. Now, I keep pushing the wrong button. Let's come back over here, and over here. I'm going to end with two quotes. All right, one from John Ruskin. The man who accepts the laissez-faire doctrine would allow his garden to grow wild so that roses might fight out with the weeds and the fittest might survive, which of course we know no gardener does. A gardener goes in there and utterly regulates the hell out of his or her garden. Okay? But on the other hand, Ludwig von Mises, if you reject laissez-faire on account of man's fallibility and moral weakness, one must for the same reason also reject every kind of government action. In other words, if you think employers aren't going to treat employees well because employers are weak and as you know, because moral weakness, what makes you think government, which is run by people, is going to show any more moral backbone than anyone else, right? Best to just let the system run its course. Well, over the next few lectures, we're going to see what comes of this, and we're going to see this constant struggle between capital, the employers, and laborers, the employees, and we're going to see how this struggle, affected business today and how it still affects business even now. If you think this is all a history lesson, consider the gig economy. The gig economy is a great example of how employers are taking advantage of a laissez-faire environment in which they can get the vast majority of their work done without hiring anybody. They just hire you as a private contractor, okay? And private contractors, they don't have to offer benefits. They don't have to offer the retirement. They don't have to offer this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. So it's really, really, really a cheap labor source to hire people through the gig economy. On the other hand, we like the gig economy because we feel like we can have control over our own financial destiny as an employee, private contractor. But what happens when you get injured? What happens when you become sick? What happens when you want to retire? You're on your own, baby. Yeah, natural selection, survival of the fittest. So this is continuing today. Everything we're going to explore over the next couple of weeks around laissez-faire and the obligation of employees and employers is continuing today in the gig economy. This is a whole renaissance of the Industrial Revolution. Okay? So we'll talk about that a lot. All right, everyone. That's it. That's it for today. I hope you found this helpful. When we come back next week, we're going to get into the weeds on this, and it's fascinating stuff. Okay? So there's your third element of capitalism, and you're all set. As always, I'll stick around. Thank you very much, Scott. You guys have a great rest of your week, and eventually a weekend will come along, and we'll see you all then. All right? Take it easy.